So in my article, the way I started it is by basically showing how El Salvador has already taken a lot of steps to attract citizens to live in El Salvador. As you may know, El Salvador had the highest rate of expatriating out of the country. People were leaving a lot, huge rates. And now it's almost evened out. As many people leave as how many people come in and to live in the country, which is huge. Like changing that in a matter of 3 years, it's crazy.
Mhm.
So again, making Bitcoin a legal tender in the country attracted huge amount of capital and interest towards the country. Now there was a new bill showing that they're trying to lower taxes for corporate entities that are
Yeah.
working in the tech industry. That's
Mhm.
huge too. That's how you attract capital. That's how you attract talent that builds big things. So that's another one. And I just went along with this, like, how else can El Salvador bring more capital, bring more people into the country, and thrive? Citizenship by investment, it's so familiar to me that I saw an opportunity for El Salvador to just launch a very similar citizenship by investment program as the ones that are out there in the world. So the countries that currently lead the citizenship by investment industry, probably the best example would be St. Kitts.
Okay.
What are St. Kitts? And basically, I compared El Salvador's passport and the quality of life and everything to the passport of St. Kitts, their quality of life, and everything that comes with citizenship by investment program, and tried to understand, can El Salvador compete with those Caribbean's program? What could they do in order to compete better? And like, of course, in my head, I can talk about it for hours just because, I do it on a daily basis, but I tried to make it very clear in the article and very short on the fact that the passport of El Salvador is pretty similar in its power to Caribbean passport. Yes, they don't have zero capital gains taxes yet, zero income taxes yet, but that's not always the reason people get those passports. So they just need to understand what they're willing to let go of or whatnot. And then I also mentioned what are the roadblocks that Bitcoiners run into when applying to citizenship by investment program. By the way, El
Mhm.
Salvador passport has almost as many countries visa free as St. Kitts passport. So travel wise, it's a pretty powerful passport, which is great. Now, what else can El Salvador do better in order to compete in the world of citizenship by investments? Huge part is being able to pay with Bitcoin. None of the countries in the world currently legally allow to pay the donation or real estate with Bitcoin. Well, real estate, they do, just some private companies, they allow that.
Okay.
But you cannot pay the fees to the government in Bitcoin. That's one thing that could be solved easily. El Salvador understands Bitcoin. El Salvador's government entities already accept Bitcoin for services, even at the border through immigration, you can pay with Lightning. So that's huge. Now, second roadblock that Bitcoiners run into is source of funds and proof of funds. Many of us made our capital by investing in Bitcoin early, buying it off the guy on the street. So you don't have receipts for it, right? Second thing is source of funds and proof of funds. Many of us made our capital by buying Bitcoin early and just holding on to that. And there's no receipts whatsoever that I can show to the government to prove that I made this money just simply by holding Bitcoin. What they want to know is that you didn't make those money by selling cocaine on the street, but like try and prove it, right, with Bitcoin. So um, just being able to verify addresses, look at the blockchain history, and understand, okay, this is where this person bought Bitcoin. They can still sign a message to prove that they still own this Bitcoin. We can see all the transactions. Like, this is so over the head of Caribbean governments. I've tried to explain signing the message for proof of funds, like to basically prove that you actually own that Bitcoin so many times. Absolutely no luck. Maybe it's on me, maybe it's on them for not being actually interested. But again, El Salvador has already solved this problem. They understand Bitcoin. They can implement programs like this. They can implement tech in order to be able to verify things like that. So that's huge too. And now they basically just need to implement the operations the right way to make sure the due diligence is pretty good. Because if their due diligence sucks, like we have again great example of Vanuatu, if their due diligence is really bad, the other countries will realize it very soon, and they will pull their special treaty with El Salvador, meaning that El Salvador will lose visa-free access to many countries. So bad due diligence causes distrust from your allies in the world, causing your passport to become weaker. So again, it's a really hard concept to understand, I think, for people not in the industry. But very specific example, Vanuatu kept giving passport to anybody. If your criminal record was a little dirty, you could have just paid an extra $10,000 and they would still let you go through. And people realized it. Other countries realized it. And Vanuatu used to have visa-free access to Europe Union, no longer. They pulled it out. They said anybody who received passport from 2017 and later will not have access to Europe Union. And El Salvador clearly doesn't want this to happen. Having a powerful passport is a great thing, especially for citizenship by investment program. So they need to be careful of that. They need to implement pretty good due diligence process that will also provide privacy and confidentiality of the process, right? Like, I'm willing to provide you my information if you promise that will never leak. You will not disclose the fact that I'm getting a passport from your country to anybody else. That needs to be done too. So like a lot of privacy concerns come into place with due diligence, just like, KYC and all the problems around it. But here you also deal with like actual government paperwork. So you're as KYC as it gets, basically. So that's something they need to make sure. After that, I also know how some countries like St. Kitts right now so delayed with their applications, so backlogged that it takes like over a year for people to get approvals for their citizenship by investment program.
Wow.
And this is ridiculous. This is not something El Salvador should do. They should really streamline the processing to make sure that they provide an approval in the matter of like 3 months, no more. And, governments are inefficient. They can't do things quick. They can't be, just like small businesses. They don't have to compete as much. So they're pretty bad with their operations. Let me quickly that. So for El Salvador, that's an opportunity. They starting this program from scratch. They don't have a history of having bad operations and having terrible tech behind it. They can build it great and make it like pretty efficient. So that would be another thing they need to look into. And again, I'm willing to help as much as I can. I'm very inspired by what El Salvador is doing with Bitcoin, making it legal tender. It's huge. They really are leading the nation state entrance into Bitcoin, which I'm very anti-politics. I don't care about governments and nation states. But I still admire what they do a lot and it's beautiful. Just cool to see how on such a big scale people care about Bitcoin and understand the value of it. So yeah, I'm willing to help. I want to try and outline the full program the way it will really work great.